May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. Quite the reading. It starts with, "You brood of vipers," and ends with, "Proclaim the good news," or the gospel. It takes us from that one point to the other. And to a certain extent, it tells us how to get there. But there are some things we need to understand before we can even start our journey. First of all, what is so awful about a brood of vipers? It may sound like it's a nasty thing because it's a nest full of people who have poison in their mouths. But that's not what they meant at all. We just don't get that because we don't think the way they did at that time. That would be a bad thing, but it's a different bad thing. They believed that when vipers were born, they ate their way out of their mother. So the mother would go into a den, and out, when they next looked, it would just be a seething mass of these tiny little snakes, and the mother would be nowhere to be seen, and there would be shed skins and things like that there. So their assumption was that the babies ate the mother. So when he accuses them of being a brood of vipers for jumping on the bandwagon, what is he actually saying? He's saying, in order to actually meet Christ, you're willing to destroy everything that you came from. That's not very nice. And in a lot of ways, it's a lot worse than having a mouthful of poison. You brood of vipers. To what extent are we a brood of vipers? And we are. Because we talk of the need to sort of recreate what church is, to find a new way. And if that's done without honoring the past, if that's done without staying linked to who we have been, then we are the brood of vipers. And the way that that's been happening for many years in the Anglican Church is that we tend to forget that we are not a local church. We're a worldwide church, right from the beginning. Christ's church was everybody, and we took care of each other. And we get very stuck on the local, and we forget the world. Now, there have been things that have been making us remember the world lately. And it's unfortunate that there have been things that make us remember the world. But even then, our vision is very small. Now, Sue, you can't answer this because you were there yesterday at Diocesan Council. So, if I asked the rest of you, what is going on right now in Burundi, would you be able to tell me? Burundi has just finished a civil war. And the province of Bujumbura is devastated. And they have people fleeing from Bujumbura into Muyinga, Now, you may have heard of Muyinga because we pray for them every week. They're our companion diocese in Burundi. And the people that are fleeing to Muyinga have to leave home so suddenly that they don't even bring with them a pot to cook food in. So they're arriving with nothing. This is part of what it means to be a national church, an international church, a worldwide church, is that we have these connections. We pay attention to them. We respond to them. Through the diocese, we are responding. The diocese has been saving money in order to build a hospital in Muyinga. Before this happened, there was $9,000 towards that in a bank account waiting. $3,000 has already been sent to help feed those who are arriving in Muyinga. If they're not alive, they have no need for a hospital. Diocesan Council authorized a further $3,000 to be spent to do that. It will help. It won't be enough. But this is part of what it means to be a national and international church. That we are not just local. That we're not a brood of vipers focusing so much on ourselves that we eat where we came from to find Christ. Now, I talked a bit with the kids about this image of giving, about what it means to prepare ourselves for Christ to come into our lives. Because that's what this is about. This isn't even about how we respond to having Christ in our lives. This is about getting ready to meet Christ for the first time, or to meet Christ again for the first time. We are trying to prepare ourselves to make room in our lives for Christ to come in, and for us to then respond. One of the great images in this is of the winnowing fork. Christ will come with his winnowing fork and separate the wheat from the chaff, and the chaff he will burn with unquenchable fire. My understanding of that has nothing to do with the good people being separated from the bad people. It's the same as that giving, about preparing ourselves. No matter what we do, we will never be fully prepared. We can get closer. But when Christ comes into our lives with that winnowing fork, he does it even better. He completes the job of separating that which is food, that which is the wheat, from that which just gets in the way, and burns that away so we're left with this core of who we were meant to be. Now, if Christ is going to do that, why should we even bother getting ready? Well, if you think about it, all of that together is who you are. So, by preparing for Christ to come, for preparing for that time of winnowing, who we are is a much bigger part of what's left. If you haven't done any preparation and you're mostly chaff, when you meet Christ and he burns away that chaff and you're left with this little sliver, what's left would be good. But wouldn't it be much better to be as ready as you can be, and to have fully grown into that image that you were meant to be? I know I have a lot of work to do to be there. I know every one of us does, because no matter how hard we work, we will not reach that goal. But we work towards it. Now, a couple of the other things that happened in this past little while. I had a great meeting with the bishop on Thursday. I was the first of the clergy in this diocese for who knows how long to go through a self-assessment and kind of review with the bishop. And part of what he's asked me to do, based on what I said were my goals, is to actually write up what I would like to see this parish look like in 7 years. What my vision is of this parish 7 years from now. And to go with that, not the full plan to get there, but sort of a general of how to move along that way, and the first step or two. I intend to have that ready for everybody to read in my report for the annual meeting. And I'm hoping that as a parish, we're able to come up with a similar type of idea. Hopefully they'll work together. Otherwise, that could be an issue. I think they will. But that's what it means to prepare. And to not be that brood of vipers. We're not throwing away what we have and creating something new that we think, oh, wouldn't that be nice? But we're saying, what's the vision? And from where we are, how do we get there? Step by step. And I know we have issues in this parish about not having enough come in to actually meet our budgets year to year. This has been consistent, and it's going to go on for a while. But I do believe that with that kind of a vision and a plan to get there, with God's help, we will get there. I have no doubt that 7 years from now, these doors will still be open. There will be at least this many, if not more, people in the pews. We will be more active in the community than we are now. And we will have, at least to a certain extent, accomplished living into the name that we chose of teachers of the faith. That is a real key there. We ask God to help us choose a new name for the parish. And if we don't accept that name and live into it, we're kind of denying that God had anything to do with it. This is the name that we chose with God's help. So let's be teachers of the faith. And let's have a plan. Let's prepare the way so that 7 years from now, people who are not in here, that look at us and say, well, why do they have that name? We'll be able to say, that makes sense. With God's help, we will be there. Christ is coming into our lives. Thanks be to God.